Hello.
Good morning, Ian. How we doing?
Very good. We got an extra special guest today.
We
Hey,
do.
everybody.
One that I'm already mad at because he came on and rubbed it in my face that he's drinking soda and I'm over here like an idiot drinking coffee. So we'll see.
Yep.
We got to turn this around.
Taylor Otwell back with a mostly technical podcast. Good to be here.
Oh man, I love the Taylor Otwell vibes. Just the
Did we lose Ian
beautiful
already?
sounds.
He's
Oh, there he is. Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
yeah. No, he was frozen in a state of permanent happiness on my screen.
Once I get that Taylor Otwell audio coming through my earbuds, just locks me up. So good.
Yep. So how's this podcast work? I don't. What's the agenda here?
We got a couple things, but I mean, not a totally formal agenda, but a lot's going on. So I feel like we'll have plenty to talk about.
It was a heck of a weekend, and I feel like Ian got back on the keyboard this weekend, which was great. We love to see Ian back on Twitter.
Hot takes.
It was a busy weekend on Twitter for sure.
I feel like we haven't had one like that in a while. I don't know. It's like the crossover of the JavaScript people of like I feel like it's like a couple months, right? Of like the JavaScript world is discovering Laravel, which is awesome, and what we're all really excited about that, I think. And but maybe there's some cultural differences in the two ecosystems. So I don't know. I know maybe we could start. I mean, you were on a podcast last week, kind of talking about the Taylor, and you had some tweets about it over the last couple of weeks. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess even before we get to that stuff, I kind of feel like the thing I've been thinking about is how is it that Laravel has the best community in software development? Like, I legit believe that it's the best community. Like, there's rarely ever drama. I mean, there hasn't been drama in like years, I would say.
The most recent one was the final class debate. That was, woo, man. People
that's
were
like a PHP thing. Like, that's not even a Laravel thing. I mean,
that
I
was
don't know.
very, yeah, that was benign.
I don't know, T. What do you think about this? Like, obviously, you've thought a lot about it.
Yeah, it is super low drama, and I think it's a great place to be right now. I'm not sure if it's because I'm not sure what has led to that. I'm not sure if it's because we conquered all our old enemies and now we're living in peace times. But
Damn, I love that take. That's a hot take right there.
I don't know. I think it's probably a combination of things. Like, it's a mature community where we've kind of solidified on a lot of how we do things and what tools we like, and people's options are sort of known and mature, and so there's not a lot to like bike shed or debate about these days, I don't think. I think I'm just more chill personally in a lot of ways than I was 10 years ago, in terms of like I don't really like do a lot of like arguing online in a serious way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a combination of things. I think just the ecosystem maturity plays a lot into it, where there's just not a lot that we're debating these days. We're kind of just all building stuff, shipping stuff. We're using tools like Livewire and Inertia and Eloquent to do our thing, So I think that's a big piece of it. Whereas JavaScript is not that way, like nothing feels very solidified. There's still lots of debating. There's still lots of bike shedding, which is crazy because it's like
the oldest
old ecosystem. So
I think it's also like the benevolent dictator aspect of things, right? Like, in your personality in that, I feel like even when you were slightly less chill, you're still a pretty chill guy overall. And I think that's been, I mean, I feel like you get this in Rails too with DHH, right? He's way less chill than you are, but still, like, there's kind of this vision and a person leading and people are behind that, I think that does help a lot. Whereas JavaScript obviously just is a Wild West, and there's all different leaders and everybody's got their own agendas and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think to recap, like, over the weekend, there was like this debate between some kind of prominent people in the JavaScript space and some prominent Laravel people. And I think one of the biggest differences is it feels like people like me and you like approach the problems from this very product centric focus in terms of just like shipping finished complete software. And it feels like a lot of people on the JavaScript side don't approach the discourse that way. It's very like nitty gritty technical combo. What about combo boxes and tooltips? And very like at the micro level of the discussion, in terms of like building quality software, where this kind of makes them sound worse than I mean it to, but I think we look at it from just a higher level and just the whole product and prioritizing it and building a sustainable business for like yourself and your family or whatever, which is just a different discussion.
Yeah, I think DHH had a great tweet about it because this all kicked off for those who somehow aren't in the loop with like kind of some JavaScript guys.
Aaron is shook by this DHH praise coming out of Ian's mouth.
I'm just, I just mark it down in
full
your
circle.
diary. Today, Ian praised DHH. Like this is my favorite. I just love the reversal here. This is go on, praise DHH some more, Ian.
It's so funny because I literally have like 15 years of documented like on podcast being like DHH his takes is terrible. Don't follow his advice. Like, and. I don't know. He's been like so spot on with it. Like DHH in the last month is just like he's just totally done a 180 for me. It's just like he's in the pocket. He can say no wrong. He can do no wrong. He's just on point. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's like I said this privately to some of my friends here. It's like I feel like I should be in my moment of glory. That like everybody's piling on DHH and I could be in there right with them, piling on his technical takes and. Like, no, I don't. I'm sad because I can't do that because he's
no
right.
fault in the man.
Yeah, no, he's just right. But yeah, so they were micro analyzing and popover and hey and whatever. Literally made their browser be 3G and VPN to Australia, which is double the round trip. So right there, it's like insanity. But yeah, and it's just like. He followed up after they fixed it and made it fast, obviously, as you knew they would, because it took 10 minutes or whatever to tweak this one thing. And it's just like when you're looking at it with your own money and you're trying to build a product and you're making trade-offs in a real product for real customers, like, yeah, like every popover being micro optimized is way, way down on the list from like getting shipped at all or dealing with feedback from actual paying customers and the new features they want and all those things that have to actually happen. And then yeah, down the line you can get there, but and his other take is like, yeah, if you're cal.com and you got $50 million, yeah, you have 30 developers who do nothing but optimize the JavaScript. Great, like go ahead and do that. But that's not how
he said. Hey, was primarily built by one person with a few people pitching in at the end. So I think it was that. I don't know if it's George or Jorge. I think it was that one guy that did most of the stuff. And DHH tweeted, "Oh yeah, he took a look at the popover and he fixed it this weekend. Not a big deal. Thanks for all the free press."
Yeah, pretty crazy. I think people would be like, it's almost like everyone needs to try to build a complete product at some point in their life, just to like get a taste of making those kinds of decisions and trade-offs. I think like in the Laravel world, like I think there was some discourse about how like. We just don't care, about quality. And I actually think that
I saw you chime in on that one.
I think most people in the Laravel world are doing the best that they can, with their skill set. I don't think people are just like cutting corners. I got to get my Lambo. Like this site is going to be trash, but it doesn't matter. I think most people are shipping the best products they can. And I thought back to like when I first shipped Laravel Forge, it was like Bootstrap CSS. It looked almost just like straight up default Bootstrap CSS. But in many ways, it was like the best that I could do, like at the time, honestly, with just like the overall skill set I had. I don't think people are just like purposely making bad quality stuff,
No, that was like one of the bizarrest takes of the whole weekend. I was like, "What? I don't even know what
one that
people
got
are
me.
talking
That's
about."
The one that got me to. That's the one that got me to wade into the arena. Yeah, when he was like, almost none of y'all care if you ship garbage as long as it gets you a Lambo, and I'm like, ooh. You're talking about my two friends, Taylor and DHH here. I don't like that one bit. But yeah, the whole like you don't care as long as it makes money. Well, unfortunately, I am not post-economic like some people might be. And like money is a consideration for me. Like it really is. Like it's my number one thing when I'm thinking about business is how do I make money to put food on my family, And so to say that like you would ship garbage in exchange for a paycheck, I'm like, well, I would ship in exchange for a paycheck. My goal is to never ship garbage. I don't like that. I mean, we named our company Try Hard Studios, for goodness sakes. Like, we're going to try as hard as we possibly can. But, like, that's really a disingenuous framing that we want to ship garbage. And that I was like, ooh, I got to say something here.
What really I think to be a framework author and have that take too, I thought was very bizarre because to me is like the ultimate Taylor Laravel thing to me is like we're trying to provide this foundation so that even a beginner can ship something that's like pretty secure, reasonably fast, like operates in a reasonable manner. And yeah, like you can get down in there and micro optimize and do all the run Octane and do all that stuff, right? But just if you just ship Laravel out of the box, like you're getting a pretty good baseline application that's pretty good. Like if you literally don't know what you're doing and you just ship some basic forms and stuff, it's a pretty good application compared to 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So like to me that's like the whole point of all these frameworks is like to raise all the ships up to like a reasonable level. And yeah, like obviously if you have a very high standard or you have a lot of skill, you can take it up to that next level of true magic. But that's not where most people are. That's not where most people will ever be. And so it's servicing the whole market there.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I just find it crazy that like and like grateful that Laravel's even in these discussions at all. Like to me isn't that kind of weird?
It. Yeah.
14-year-old PHP framework is like it's put up there right against like the latest
cutting edge
and greatest
Overnight
JavaScript
success. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty wild. So I'm happy for that, you know, even though it's been a busy weekend on the Twitter sphere. I feel like privileged to be like in this spot.
It's sort of like I think we'll get to some of this stuff later. I don't want to get all the way over there to yet, but with like what you're doing with kind of expanding Laravel, but it feels to me like for the first time maybe in web development ever, where like you can have these frameworks that are maturing, but then get to benefit from being mature and then you can build out from there. Whereas like in the past, I feel like everything's changed so quickly.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, framework gets started, we ditch it because the next framework comes, and then we ditch it and the next framework comes, and you have all those changes. So you never get to the phase of like, we are a big established player and all the benefits that come with that. And then we can build on top of that into really massive things because the tech just changed so quick that you're throwing stuff out all the time. But now it's like, no, like Laravel's like super relevant today as it was in the beginning. And there's nothing obvious that's going to change that right now. You never know, but seems like we're in a good foundational spot there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about it a lot. I mean, I think Symfony like sort of got close to this in PHP where they got pretty dang established.
Yeah,
but I feel like Laravel was just sort of like right place, right time in the overall PHP language lifespan, where we got namespaces, we got anonymous functions, we got the features that let us build Eloquent, and was able to sort of capitalize on that right moment in time. And in a lot of ways seems like, you know, potentially will be sort of like the last big PHP framework to be written, I would imagine.
Right.
You know, I think just once you get to a certain level, like kind of like Laravel or Rails, you're kind of like there, and it's hard to really build something new. So everyone just kind of piles onto it. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome to be able to build out this sort of wide ecosystem. And I think we still have a lot of cool ideas in the future too, that I'm excited about. So I'm not running out of gas yet.
That's a huge thing for Laravel. I mean, every Tuesday or whatever it is, right? It's like there's a new Laravel release, like just like clockwork, just every week there's a new release. And it's just like, and there's real stuff in there. It's not even just like, oh yeah, it's like there's 3 bug fixes. It's like, no, there's stuff being shipped.
No, yeah. Sometimes there's some real bangers in those weekly releases.
I feel like you moved even more in. You kind of leaned into that more. I feel like you used to maybe hold more back for kind of the big releases, but you're kind of moved towards just like let's get it out.
Yeah, I feel like as I get closer to Laracon, I start holding a little bit more back. And then after Laracon, I'll just like start shipping in the weekly releases. But yeah, we definitely, you're right that it used to be like back in the day, I would hold almost everything back for those 6-month releases, you know, and then put it all out at once. But we try to just continually sort of provide value throughout the year at this point, I think.
How much do you think the success of Laravel is because Laravel is your business? Like DHH has, 37 signals, and so he's focused on all that. But you're building Forge and Vapor and Nova and all of these things that like flesh out the ecosystem just on the paid side. On the free side, you're building everything. So what do you think that has to do with it?
I mean, I think it's huge. I think it's the biggest difference between Laravel and Rails from like an operational perspective. DHH obviously super talented, but Rails wasn't necessarily like his core focus. I don't think, at least that's my read on it, is that he was more focused on Basecamp and then later, Hey, and all of their other products that have come and gone, Campfire and other stuff. Yeah, where I think whereas me, Laravel has always literally been like what I thought about from pretty much like sun up to sundown and was like my primary focus. So it's got to be like obviously a huge reason we were able to grow it to this point. So yeah, I've thought about that myself too. I think it is a pretty big difference in the way the two projects have operated, and mainly a big difference maybe between any other web frameworks.
Yeah, that's what I
to
was
this
gonna
point.
say. Yeah, I don't think there's really any that have built up this type of level of ecosystem around them. Which is even tricky too, because like when you get to the JavaScript stuff, it's like they almost can't build this level of ecosystem. It's like you could do training materials or whatever, but like it's hard to imagine like an infrastructure play like really around a lot of them. And it's like, so then how do they get funded and all those things? Whereas you've just had this engine of funding that's really just let you build out a team that works on it full time, which is a huge advantage.
To build like a cohesive framework like Laravel, there's just so many decisions that have to be made at all sorts of layers of the stack. Like the database layer is a big one, just so that you can build out. Like you can't build a tool like Nova if you don't know the database, if you don't know the RM, like if you don't make a hard decision about it. And even the same with things like Cashier, where that needs to interact with the database too, and it needs to handle events and routes. And it's hard to build like the really fleshed out batteries included ecosystem if you can't make just some, stake in the ground decisions about how certain things are going to work. And I think that's why like they've never gotten to that point in JavaScript. And I think they kind of just like it that way. I don't really know. Like that's just a cultural difference.
That's what they keep claiming. Yeah.
So like I was talking to, I was out in San Francisco a few weeks ago, actually. So I was like in the nitty gritty of that ecosystem,
the belly of the beast.
Yeah. And I was talking to a CEO out there of a, I guess a moderately well-known kind of up-and-coming startup, and they built kind of their whole stack on JavaScript, front end and back end. So I was asking him like this question directly, like, isn't it hard to like build anything in that ecosystem? And he was like, yeah, it's super hard. Like it's actually really annoying. And I would actually just much prefer to have a more opinionated stack. And he says, but you just like come to embrace the darkness, of that stack. And he said it's actually pretty interesting because like you can see like the seasonal changes, the yearly changes in opinion and JavaScript in their own product of like, you go to this feature of the product and it's like, oh, this was written in, this is a 2021 feature because it's built this way, So just like still nothing is very solidified. It's weird.
Yeah. And if you just think about all the big programming framework, like before we had all the open source frameworks, we had like Microsoft and Apple and IBM or whoever, like who had, they have thousands of developers and we're building out this whole framework and everything's highly integrated and thought through together as a single unified platform. And like there's a reason that exists, like that's just a nice way to build software when everything knows how everything else works and you can have standards and interactivity and things. And when you just have like all these different groups trying to like build stuff, and we're trying to abstract it all so it can all work with anything, but like you have such a layer of abstraction to pull that off that then there's always going to be a weird amount of glue there, I think, to make it work.
Yeah. I'm trying to come up with the perfect example for a video to illustrate this of like why picking your own components sounds good but ends up being painful. And I feel like one of them in Laravel is like sending an email, because the way that you can do that is you have to have like the mail component. You usually want to queue that, so you have to have the queue component. But then you're also passing a user or some kind of model in. And so you have to like serialize and unserialize, but with Laravel, it just keeps the ID around and then rehydrates it. And then you have to know like, well, I want to send this email after the transaction closes. So you have dispatch after transaction. That's like 4 or 5 components that need to know about each other. And you don't want to just like be grabbing random stuff and gluing it together, because with Laravel you can just say dispatch after transaction and it goes into the queue and it like it rehydrates the user. All of that just works together so nicely.
Yeah. There's so many things I think that just get taken for granted. Like even that whole model serializing, unserializing thing from the queue and back and forth, like putting all of those pieces together would take you weeks, like in JavaScript to figure out. I don't know. And I think it's kind of the other side of the coin to the whole discussion this weekend of like, I guess you guys don't care about quality. I think we could make that same kind of dig at this stuff, like, oh, you're not going to like serialize your emails onto the queue and send them in the background. They're just going to send synchronously. And, like we could just kind of make that same claim from that perspective.
Yeah, how many bugs are in there because you had to invent all this glue that is so fleshed out in Laravel that millions of people have used and been tested and all that thing. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like that same background. It's like the background that we've kind of all come up with in Laravel, like the more entrepreneurial background. Like to me, that's so much like when Microsoft builds out their frameworks, they're like, we don't want people thinking about all the glue and stuff. We just want them making products. And that's how Laravel is, right? It's like, what's the upside to me of thinking about how the queue works? Like there's no business upside for me to have a deep understanding of like what's being serialized and how it goes and blah, blah. Most of the time, like obviously you can come up with scenarios where like that's super important, but most of the time, like I'm just trying to send this email. The email is like a way secondary thing to the point of my application. And I just want to get through that part in 10 minutes and move on to the next thing, but know it's reliable and know it's scalable to some reasonable amount and all those things so I can get to building my application that I'm trying to build and not be down in the weeds of that foundational stuff. And I've never really thought about Laravel as Microsoft before, but I feel like that's actually a super good analogy.
What a day full of takes, man. Yeah. I kind of wonder if that's like because of or part of the PHP ecosystem. Like I feel like the PHP world going back to, the early 2000s is just like, we're going to hack something together and we're going to build a product and we're going to make a business. And I feel like because PHP is not it's not like the fun, sexy language. The people that are here are like, I'm here to accomplish a purpose, not to be some sort of, architect astronaut or whatever. And so I feel like it's kind of like our legacy or our history of, hey, we're going to just build something because we can. That's how it feels to me.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious I'll just kind of brainstorm with you guys live for a second because it's something I've been thinking about. There's been a lot of discussion about, I guess publicly and some kind of back channel private discussions of like, how do we convince people that are currently using these kind of so-called full stack JavaScript frameworks that they would be much better served like just building on Laravel and maybe even using JavaScript on the front end? Because I think that's something that people have been were not aware of until maybe the last few weeks of discussion, that like Laravel embraces JavaScript in a way that, for example, Rails doesn't, because we have things like inertia that we push essentially almost as a first party type of package where you can use Vue and React on the front end with your Laravel backend and just return stuff from your controllers like normal, and it feels great. And you can use all of the fancy React component libraries that are out there these days. But anyway, I've kind of debated in myself internally, do I even try to like convert these people, or is it better like to focus on putting PHP and Laravel back at the top of the funnel of where people first get into web development? Because I think 10 years ago or even longer ago, when I first started writing Laravel, super common to like enter web programming via PHP because it's just like an easy language to learn. It was easy to host. Easy to get started with. The documentation is fairly good as far as like the available functions and how they work and stuff. So like part of me has been like, you know what, like I think trying to convince people to like switch their whole stack is actually really, really hard. And we even tried to do this like in PHP itself, right? Where like 2015, 2016, there's sort of this Laravel contingent and this no framework contingent or maybe other framework contingent. And it's just very hard to like pull those people into your camp. And I almost wonder if it would be better to like really position Laravel as the most productive way to build complete products and market that just to people coming in to like web development from the beginning, so you can just recapture them and maybe reposition PHP back at the top of that funnel where right now it feels like dominated by JavaScript via boot camps and just learning
Yeah.
materials in general. And I think part of that work is on us, because while PHP was easiest to deploy 10 or 15 years ago, it actually isn't the easiest to deploy anymore. But I think that's something we're working on here at Laravel, to kind of get us back to competing with like deployment on Vercel, where it's like one command, boom, 1 minute you're live. And I think we'll get back to that, but it's, maybe later this year, early next year. But anyway, that's kind of what I've been thinking. I'm curious how y'all feel about that whole, like, trying to convert people versus putting PHP back at the forefront of entry to programming and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea of being the place you go at the start, that like PHP and Laravel is the best way to get started, whether started with programming purely or just that like idea of like, I'm ready to build a product. Where do I go for that? And it's the batteries included, and I feel like the ecosystem around that layer of like you're just getting started is so strong with Laravel. It's like you have the Laracast, you have all the stuff Aaron does, you have a million other 8 billion blog posts and everything else that's out there, right? And like that's such a strength, I feel like, of the community and the product and everything. Whereas like, yeah, like trying to and then it's like one of these things where like you have your niche and you talk about that. And then the other people are still going to come in, right? Like the JavaScript people are still going to be brought in over time, maybe more slowly than if you were explicitly targeting them. But also it's just going to be much easier versus like trying to convert everybody and be in these constant battles of like, let me prove to you and convert you to my religion here, which is always a little bit of a tricky thing to do in general. So let them discover on their own that like, oh, I'm struggling back here with this and I've heard of this Laravel thing. So, yeah, I think to me that's really logical and probably still like it's been happening. Like there'll be natural olive branches of a sort to the JavaScript world. I do think there's this whole JavaScript world that's unfortunately poorly served by like the Twitter JavaScript world, like the big famous people who kind of suck up all the oxygen on Twitter and on YouTube are maybe not representative of the regular day in, day out JavaScript developer. So that's a little, so I do think there's probably something there where it's like, forget about this, like, the big wigs, but it's like, there's probably some paths into the actual people doing actual work who aren't tweeting 20 times a day and all that stuff. But they also seem to
there's
fit in that.
There's sort of a new wave of like tech or dev journalism that like didn't exist a few years ago, and it's got a whole different flavor. I mean, people like the Theos and the Primogens. It's like they're like Twitch streamers, they're like tweeters, almost like journalists and commentators, and it's fun. Like in a lot of ways, I'm glad to have it around, but it is just very different than how web development discourse functioned even just like 2 or 3 years ago, it feels like.
Yeah, and there's this like, and you get why they do it, right? They're running the playbook that other groups have realized works, right? But it's like Primogen, who I enjoy.
I like Primogen.
He tweeted the other day, it's like, so tell me everything you hate about Go. And it's like, it's like a negative, like, give me all your hate and I'm going to run with the hate and do something with it, And it's like, that's a different kind of vibe than we've had probably, and definitely in the Laravel world than we've had. So yeah, I think that that is true, that there is like, that's ultimately what the algorithm wants though, right? And like, that's how you get 400,000 YouTube subscribers. Maybe we're hoping Aaron becomes.
I'm trying to show a different way. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I don't like the journalism part of it. Like the Sam Altman gets fired, so let me make a video about it. Like, what do you know about Sam Altman and OpenAI? Like, I go to actual journalists for that. I like let me show you how to do something cool. Like, I like the education aspect of it better. And I think that is like, in my opinion, that is like the more like pure way to do it. Like to what you were saying, or to your question, who should we win over? I don't know that the groups are discrete. So like the old school or the people currently using JavaScript and the new entrants, the groups are discrete, but I don't know if the way that we reach them is discrete. I think we can do the same kind of content and reach both groups at once. And I think we've seen that in the past several weeks of people being like, wait, inertia exists? Y'all can use full on React on your front end? And we're like, yeah, we've been saying. And so I think that helps existing people and new people. I think the problem with getting the new people is PHP as a whole, if you're going to look for a job, doesn't pay as much as React. And I don't know if that dries up with all the money being gone now. And like if that becomes,
I would think so.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it becomes more even. But you have like, you've got the Stack Overflow survey coming out saying PHP are the lowest paid developers. And part of me is like, yeah, but are they doing WordPress? Like the PHP ecosystem is so enormous and it's so global that I have to feel like those results are somewhat skewed if you're doing Laravel in the USA or Europe versus WordPress somewhere else. I have to feel like that makes a big effect. But that's one of the common refrains against which I have no rebuttal is we don't get, PHP doesn't get paid very much. And I think all of us are kind of like immune to that because we're like, oh, I'm using PHP to build my own thing. It's not like I'm going to look for a job. But I think a lot of people are looking for jobs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a fair point, really.
I'm curious how many actual jobs there are though in React. You know what I mean? Like obviously again, this is one of these like biased things where it's like, yes, we see a bunch of React developers on Twitter because they're semi-Twitter famous and all this stuff. But in reality, I have a hard time believing there's not many more PHP jobs than React jobs. Just because there's just a lot more PHP apps, there's a lot more WordPress and that whole ecosystem. So yeah, like the average might be more, but if you're doing like high-end SaaS PHP Laravel work, I think you're making a more reasonable salary than somebody who has other PHP.
Yeah, but you're not making $416,000 in New York City being a design engineer.
You're not doing that. But how hard is that job to get? That's the point, right?
Probably
like how many of those jobs actually exist? Like in reality, I don't know. I don't think
there are a lot of
5,000
design engineers, and they all work at Clerk. So
right,
if you want to do that,
Clerk. Like so, yeah,
exactly.
So I don't know, like how many of those jobs are really out there? I feel like there's a lot of skew to that, but
I'm excited about PHP becoming easier to deploy one click or one command, get an app out there. That I think that's going to be huge.
I
think we're working on a lot of things. Like it's taking a little bit of time to get all the chess pieces like in the right spots for like this whole story. But I mean, there's been parts of it already in place. Like I think Laravel Herd was actually a really big piece to get in place on the local side of things.
Yeah, love Herd.
We're also working on Joe Tannenbaum recently joined the Laravel team, and one of the first projects he's working on is getting like our VS Code story a little bit more first party and solidified. Whereas right now, a lot of the developers either coming into development or in other ecosystems, especially JavaScript, are using VS Code. They don't necessarily want to go like full blown IDE level thing just to try out Laravel.
Sure.
So we're trying to kind of consolidate a lot of the popular VS Code Laravel extensions that do, things like the extra IntelliSense stuff or the blade highlighting and all of that basic stuff you would need into one first party Laravel VS Code extension to where it's like, boom, this one thing really levels up like your Laravel experience. And basically the most popular free editor. So I think that will help. And then we recently also hired a designer, our first full-time designer at Laravel.
Whoa.
Just one? So you're supposed to get 7 or 8, I thought.
Dozens of people. And this is your first designer. I love it.
Yeah, our first full-time designer. So he'll be starting next week. He's actually worked with Primeagen and a lot of those guys on their coffee brand.
Cool.
Okay.
So they actually referred me to him.
Oh, I think I know exactly who this is. That's cool.
Yeah, but also has a lot of real world app development experience and a lot of like real. When I looked at his portfolio, I was excited because the apps looked very real and kind of information dense, and they weren't just like pie in the sky types of apps. But anyway, I think like the next one of the other chess pieces I want to get in place is just sort of like our marketing site, Laravel.com, the story we're trying to tell, the way we present the full ecosystem with Livewire and Inertia and the different options you have, and trying to tell like make a compelling case for like choosing Laravel on that side. And then again, like the deployment stuff, I think is something basically a big chunk of the company is working on, both on Forge and sort of evolutions of what that story might look like. And, I think there's still months of work to do there, but hopefully by the end of the year, we have something to show there that really kind of takes things to the next level.
So I do want to talk more about that, but jumping back one second, one of the things with inertia, I feel like, is so you have like Livewire and inertia in some ways, if you want the like real interactivity, right? And it's like they both kind of come under the Laravel umbrella in one way or another. But Livewire does, have Caleb, who's like very actively out there. He's developing, he's talking about it, he's building courses and all that stuff. And Inertia doesn't really have that person. Like, I mean, Jonathan obviously built it and still kind of involved, but he's obviously doing other things with Tailwind and whatever. I wonder if at some point just having like, some type of DevRel person that's like responsible for Inertia or something like that, where somebody's like really just taking it under their wing a little bit to be that Caleb person on the Inertia side,
Yeah, I think it would be useful. I think Inertia and Livewire, they feel very similar in their goals, but they're quite a bit different technically.
Yeah.
I think like it's tough. Like I don't want to put words in Jonathan's mouth, but I'm sure it's hard for him. I think he knows that this is like sort of an issue, where he created Inertia, so it's obviously kind of his baby, and he feels like very passionate about making sure it stays good, which I can relate to that because the idea of letting someone else like take over merging pull requests on Laravel just feels extremely scary to me.
Right.
But at the same time, I think he does know like it's hard to do both, work at Tailwind full time in a very like senior role at Tailwind, and then also maintain Inertia. So I mean, it's something we've actually been talking about just like a couple days ago, like on Telegram. It's kind of an ongoing discussion of like, hey, there's XYZ. I would like to get an Inertia before Laracon. Like, what's the best way to kind of make that happen, and who should work on it on our side? Who should work on your side? Because we have resources here. We recently hired on Claudio Decker, who's a big contributor to Inertia in the past. And we have other, even people like Jess and Tim McDonald and others can contribute to Inertia as well. So I think also one of the big differences is like, I agree we need that person with Inertia, or at least we need kind of the same momentum. But at the same time, it's hard because Inertia is just such like a slimmer type of product compared to Livewire, whereas Livewire has to have a lot of these big, flashy, cool features, whereas Inertia is almost just like this communication protocol between Vue or React and your Laravel backend. And at some point, honestly, probably in the near future, like Inertia will be done, final complete software in a way that Livewire probably will never be. It will always be like evolving and iterating. And that's hard from like a marketing perspective because it inevitably raises like, is this project dead? Is this project still alive? And I don't think Inertia.
The question I get all the time about Inertia is, well, it's not maintained anymore. We should use hybridly, or we should use something else that's actually maintained. And it's like, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I think there's more to do on Inertia. Like, I don't think it's complete software yet, but it will potentially get there in a way that Livewire won't. And I think people it's hard for people to mentally kind of wrap their head around that. But
yeah.
Overall, I agree. We need to be like pushing it more. I don't think it's like awareness or people aren't aware of it like they should be in other ecosystems as well.
Right. Just the awareness factor, even more than like the actual nuts and bolts of the development of it. It's like just somebody out there just by talking about it, it's like that kind of awareness. But I'm going the opposite direction. Laravel JavaScript framework. That's what we need. See, that's the missing piece. That's the front end. We need the reactive Laravel that comes from the mind of Taylor Otwell.
I feel like that was Vue 2.
There we go.
Vue 2, like, I feel like Taylor and Vue 2 were a match made in heaven. And now it's composition, and we're getting all JavaScripty, but Vue 2 was the peak.
I do feel like Vue 2 was pretty goated level software, just like S tier level software. So we use Vue 3 on Forge and stuff, but I agree. Like I really have a soft spot for Vue 2. When I hired Jess Archer, actually, a few years ago, she was always hired to be sort of like Laravel's Area 51 type of developer, where I was going to give her kind of like these very skunkworks experimental projects, and definitely building like a JavaScript framework was something that came up like in discussions, as something we might consider doing. And I think I ran it by her a time or two. but we never really pulled the trigger on that, and we're not working on that now, for clarity.
Yeah, right. Well, probably not a good idea, but a boy
it did come
dream.
up. Yeah, I'm just saying it did come up. Yeah,
yeah.
She's actually working on her and Tim, and a new hire that hasn't started yet is working on something that I think is going to be pretty dang cool, though. It's not the deployment. It's not
Don't let us stop you.
It's not the deployment stuff either. It's a totally separate project. Them being in Australia, and the new developer we hired to work with them is in Japan, only like a 1 hour time difference from them. So they're kind of functioning almost like this microcosm of the company, where I think eventually, they may need their own designer, their own PM out there just to like function, but they're working on a very independent project than some of the other like Forge and kind of infrastructure type projects that we're working on. But I'm actually really excited about the stuff they're doing.
I won't push too hard, but front end, back end, infrastructure, command line. Can you give us any directional hints?
Product.
Yeah, it's a full product. It's a full product SaaS, and it's
we're talking.
I guess you would say it's related to back end and infrastructure and stuff, but it's not like a deployment platform or anything like that. So pretty cool. I think people will like it.
Is this going to be a Laracon reveal?
I think it may be. I hope I don't get in trouble for like revealing too much of this stuff. I think this product may be like a Laracon EU 2025 reveal. I think you will hear more about it before then, but I'm just saying in terms of like launch, I think that's kind of the timeline we're thinking. But I think things will start coming out, either just like teases or informational posts about it or waiting list signups, stuff like that. I think will come out before then.
I love a new Laravel product. We don't get products.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we had a full new product, right?
We got two going. We got two products going.
Oh, boy.
Man. What can you tell us about the other one? Give us something. Give us something. All right. So we got the R&D, Australia R&D division.
Australia,
is working
Japan
on
division.
a product. And then the Laravel Inc. mothership, I assume, is working on the other product.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that is more like, that is more, iterations, evolutions of things we've done, like Forge and Vapor, that kind of thing. Trying to go to the next level, though, in terms of how those work and ease of use and speed of deployment and kind of the time it takes from sign up to getting your first app out there. We would greatly like to reduce, because like right now on Forge, you sign up for Forge, you got to connect a DigitalOcean account, you got to wait 15 minutes for that server to finish provisioning, you got to deploy your app onto it. It's like there's a lot of waiting and sort of like, and just like the scariness of like, if you want to link an AWS account, you got to go get an IAM credential. That's a pain. So trying to improve that whole story, where on the deployment side of things, it feels like we can catch up a little bit to something like Vercel or Netlify or something like that.
Well, and I assume as part of that story, I mean, even with Forge, you could do this, but it sounds like obviously you're going beyond that. But like controlling the framework will let you do interesting things, I assume, of like a deeper integration and being able to do things faster and all that.
Yeah, that was never more clear than when y'all released Vapor, and then you look back on some of the commits to Laravel, the framework, and you're like, oh, this is only possible because you control both sides, and I think that's a great strength.
Yeah, I kind of had to shift some things around, make things possible in a way that wasn't possible before. Yeah.
Which is another thing.
We may have to do that a little bit with these two products, but I don't think there's any like things that would give it away that have snuck in so far. We may have to do that in the future.
I'll be keeping my eye out for those.
Everybody's watching.
Yeah, I got to get the scoop. One interesting thing you said was Claudio is back. So is Laravel now a big enough and old enough company that you're starting to get boomerang employees? Because Muhammad is back and Claudio is back.
Every employee that's ever worked here is currently here, which is pretty crazy.
That just doesn't happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, Muhammad's back, which is awesome because he was like employee number one, and we built so much foundational stuff, just me and him on Telegram, basically. So he was gone for a year or two as he sort of transitioned to Dubai and all of that comes with that in terms of like work visas and things like that.
Sounded like a stressful period.
things that we couldn't really accommodate, here at Laravel being in the US and stuff. Yeah, it's great to have him back. And then Claudio's back. And he'll be working with kind of the Forge team. We kind of call the Forge, Envoyer, Vapor trio. That's what we call core services. So we kind of have a team around that focuses on those 3 products. And then we have 2 kind of new product teams. So yeah, it's a lot of moving parts here.
What a big co. You got a core services team? You're a big co now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what are we up to in terms of number of employees here?
I think we're like 31 or something. And at the beginning of the year, we were like 11.
Right.
31?
Yeah, so we hired 3 infrastructure people because a lot of the work we do is obviously infrastructure, just with Forge and Vapor and some of the new stuff we're doing. So 3 infrastructure people. I think we hired 5 or 6 devs, just kind of full stack Laravel, classic Laravel developers. I think we hired 4 customer support people to answer tickets, on Forge, Vapor. We were way understaffed on that, which is like 1 person.
Was PHP Goose doing the whole thing?
Yeah. So,
wow.
he was serving, probably like 22,000 paying customers on Laravel Forge or something like that.
That's insane.
So that's just, obviously that's just stupid, So beef that team up a little bit, and that takes time to ramp up. It's hard to find people to do that because it's very technical products.
Yeah.
We hired, a couple people just on kind of the operations side of thing, business side, kind of doing customer research, partnerships with people. We would love to make partnerships with, I think one's actually dropping today with Sentry, where you can link your Sentry project right in Forge. Building partnerships with people like DigitalOcean, Hetzner, just like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Finance manager, you don't want me doing the books for this company anymore. So just basic people like that. But COO, of course.
Do you feel more or less stressed? Because it sounds like you've got a lot more people doing development, but also a lot of people that took business stuff off your plate. So how do you feel?
I don't think I feel more stressed. It's definitely a little bit busier right now, but I think a lot of that is just figuring out how we want to work. Down to very practical stuff of like, okay, what kind of sprints do we want to do with the dev team? What kind of like check-ins do we need to do or stand-ups to make sure it all works well? And a lot of that has been, Andre, our new director of engineering, kind of working with me to figure out how we used to work, because we don't want to change things too much, right? Where it just feels like this Jira-driven, weird, faceless corporation. While at the same time putting in a little bit more of the structure that you need with this many people to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. So we've been figuring that out. And I've had a few more calls, which, as you know, I've historically been very anti-call. But I've been able to, I think, relegate most of my calls to the morning and kind of knock them out. And I've actually come to like them in this sick way, which I'm not sure what to think about. Especially, we kind of have like team calls. So we have a weekly core services call, a weekly secret product 1 call, and a weekly secret product 2 call.
Ooh, I thought we were going to get him. That was close. We almost got it.
He almost slipped.
And it does kind of help me, kind of stay up to date on what everyone's doing.
Hey, you need the one-on-ones, even if they're not actually one-on-one,
Yeah, so Andre's been doing a lot of the one-on-ones with the devs, and now we have actually team leads with devs. So like, for example, James Brooks, developer lead on kind of core services, Forge, Envoy, or Vapor. So they have their own kind of stuff. Yeah. Weird. Feels like a real company.
Yeah, big real company. No wonder you're 3 Coke Zeros in at 9 a.m. You got a lot of calls to do, man.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll go back a little bit, because I'm curious, like, obviously you've been running everything for years now and very profitable and small team. So obviously something changed in terms of like your, decision making and what you want to do with the company. Because I presume you could have just, maybe you could have added a few more support people or whatever, but you could have kept it, relatively small and just kind of cruise along. So you decided to change direction a little bit, to get bigger and do some different things. So maybe be curious to hear your take on what you were thinking and why you decided to do
that. Yeah, a few reasons. And I think I can speak more freely about this maybe like around Laracon US, but I think for a lot of years, I ran the company in what I would say like a very selfish way, where it was like very much to maximize my personal bottom line. And that's what leads to just like not hiring more people, because every person you hire is like this very sort of like measurable impact on your take home pay. Not taking like big risk in terms of the products we're building, because that again can just like burn into your own money. And at the beginning of the year, it kind of just reached a point where um, I actually felt like I was sort of on cruise control with Laravel a little bit. I had kind of built everything that I had envisioned building, that I had wanted to build for myself, both on just the open source side and on the commercial side with Forge and Vapor and Spark and Nova, and it just kind of like felt like we had kind of tackled what we wanted to tackle. And it kind of became this kind of fork in the road where I can either just coast into the sunset, and let things ride and keep things maintained, but we're not really being super ambitious with what we're doing necessarily.
Just play
or
Rocket
we can
League all day.
Yeah, just play Fortnite, play Rocket League, do some pull requests, have a few conferences, or just like really go like hardcore and try to take it to the next level. Which is obviously what we sort of decided to do. And again, like I can kind of get more into the specifics about that later in terms of what that looked like. But basically it was a matter of reaching a point, just personally and financially, where it was okay to take some of those risks and to not worry about that bottom line so much, which allowed us to do that hiring, do that scaling up of the company, treat it like you would really like a real company, where you would invest like the money coming into the company, you would invest into building the company back out, right? Typically, which is something I always avoided, for better or worse, So basically that's kind of the gist of it.
Well, it is also hard to go to that next level. Like at a certain point, once you have existing products, like they're always holding you back from the next product, right? Because it's like you have customers and support and downtime and whatever, all this stuff to just maintain the current products. And like the next product just is going to require way more people and energy than you have. You can't just add one developer and be like, now we're going to build the next huge thing, because that's just not how it works, right? So, that big leap, you kind of have to take that bigger leap there at some point.
I feel like this is a pretty common story with a lot of famous entrepreneurs, is they sell their first business for like a good amount of money, but not like as much as they're known for now. And then after that, they feel able to take the risk to do the big thing that we know them for. And it's interesting that you're kind of doing that, but with the same exact company.
Yeah.
Like you have your base and now you're taking a risk, but it's all one company.
This is actually circles all the way back to DHH a little bit. So something I've thought about, it was a very offhand comment. I think I heard him say in person when me and Adam Wathen went to Chicago to a Basecamp workshop to learn, like they had a very small workshop with like 25 people to learn how they do work. And it was very much in the early days of Laravel. I don't think Adam even had a business yet. Maybe he had like an ebook out or something.
Oh.
And I remember David said that very thing, that like some founders, they achieve success, they sell their first company and they're like, okay, I'll go do something else. But he was like, he had so many personal friends where it feels like very rarely are they able to capture like the same lightning in a bottle that they had with the first project. And they end up sort of like regretting it because it's just like something like a Laravel or like a Tailwind or any product that achieves any success, it's just like hard to do it again. Because so many things have to go right the first time. So I definitely couldn't like recreate Laravel. It's like a once in a lifetime type of thing. But yeah, that's why like I never that quote that he said, I don't think he was talking to me, he was talking to someone. It always just like scared me from that point on. Of like, okay, like I don't want to be that guy that like sells and goes to do something else, and I just kind of flounder and wandering in the desert for so long and can't really figure it out. So I've just kind of doubled down on Laravel. And Laravel, to come back to sort of the economics of it, was always like this very highly profitable business with obviously in software, good margins, low expenses. And right now it's just like, okay, what if we just ran the company in this very break even kind of way where we just invested everything we got back into the company, hire people, hire the designer, build cool stuff, build new products, and like what would happen, And I think that's where we are now, basically. So not being stupid, not trying to hire 200 people and just burn through tons of cash, but just like, what if we just broke even? What
if we reinvested?
Can we just pause for a second and say that like Taylor's like worst case scenario is break even, and that's the best case scenario for most other companies. It's like, oh, we're just trying to make it to break even, and Taylor's like, wow,
Yeah.
what if we really
force
invest and
ourselves
we'll
to break even?
Yeah, I mean, Laravel's in a different. Laravel's over 10 years old on the commercial side. So
Yeah.
like, we're not. If we can't do that now, like it's time to pack it up.
Yeah.
But I do think what you were saying is like, the thing is like, even what Aaron was saying is like, yes, there's people we can point to and be like, they sold their first company and then they started another company and then we really know them for that. But like 98% of the time, somebody sells their first company and then you never hear from them again, because like it's really hard to do a second product and reach that same level of it's just hard to get that juice again. You're in a different place in your life. You're older. You have kids.
It's hard,
all that.
It's hard to have the same hunger too if you have some money. If you have some money in your bank account. Whereas a lot of us, when we built our first products, we maybe had a little bit of money, but we weren't like we were trying to like make it, like to make a decent income. And I think once you get there, I've talked about this with Adam a little bit at Tailwind. It's like, it's hard to have the same hunger once you're older, once you're more established, like it's hard to recapture it.
Yeah. To start at literally zero and be like, okay, well, fresh sheet of paper. What am I going to build up? Like, it's actually pretty. I
mean, it's like when someone drops their first album. You know what I mean? Like it's almost always the best album, because you're hungry, like you're trying to make it. You're doing your best. Like
that's going to be your clean sheet. Me and Taylor forever have had Laravel music. This is next gen. Going to start a label.
Oh, yeah, if I ever pivot, it's definitely okay. So here's when I retire from Laravel and my kids are grown. My current plan is to move to like Majorca in the Balearic Islands and just DJ pool parties every weekend. I'm definitely pivoting out to music.
Man, I can't wait for this. I'm so excited.
DHH and the Goldman Sachs CEO are all going to be out there DJing. That's amazing.
Yep. I love that idea. I can't wait to go to those parties.
Yeah, when Steve Shoger used to work at Laravel, I don't know if many people know. He used to work he worked at Laravel before he worked at Tailwinds.
I didn't know that. Doing what?
Yeah, so I was looking for a part-time designer. I didn't have enough work to hire someone full-time. And Adam Wathen was like, I know this guy. He's kind of like looking for a thing. He worked for like a local company there in Canada doing stuff. And I was like, I'm looking for this guy, or he's looking for something new. And then I linked up with Matt Stauffer at Tailwind. And there was a third Ian, were you involved in this? There was a third wheel to this. I can't remember who it was.
Me. I think you asked me, but I was like, I don't even have like a quarter of a guy worth of work for you. So I don't think
so. I know he would work for Laravel for a week, Titan for a week, and then maybe he just did his own thing for a week. I can't remember what the arrangement was. But yeah, he worked for Laravel, and it was over a year.
Wow.
He built the original Spark landing page. He built a lot of maybe some of the early Nova stuff as well. So yeah, he was around here for a little while. But anyway, me and Steve, when he worked here, we would always say like, this is just the preliminary to starting a record label, because he does he makes music. He's good at making like electronic music. He should post more of it, honestly.
Y'all are crazy wanting to start a music label. That's like that feels like the same margins as selling coffee through the terminal. It's like, you're doing what? But I guess that's more of a passion project if you do.
See, my thing is, I'd always want to do. I like the music label idea. I would like to be like a minority stakeholder in Taylor's music empire. But I always want to do a movie producer. Like, I just want to produce movies. But like the amount of money you need for that, it's just like, I'm never going to get to that level.
What does it even mean to produce a movie?
I don't know, what does that mean? It's like, nobody knows. You're like, just make it up. Like, you get a script and you bring it to some people and you get some actors and you're just kind of like making
You're going to have to do some research, Ian. You don't even know what it means.
I don't want to know.
Go to ChatGPT. How do I make a movie?
You're just connecting. It's like every movie is produced by like, J.J. Abrams, right? And obviously J.J. Abrams isn't working on 30 movies a year where he's like deeply involved. It'd be impossible. So, but he's the producer on 30 movies a year. So how does he do that, right? He's just like making connections. He does some meetings, kicks it off.
Completely ridiculous. You don't even know what a producer does.
That's what I want to do. I want to do my version. My projected version is I'm just making connections, bringing good scripts to good directors.
Curator, tastemaker.
Taste. It's all about taste. Exactly.
Yeah, I wish you the
Exactly,
best. I don't think
Taylor.
I'll be investing in that one, but I wish you the
come
best.
on.
That's
We
awesome.
only need like
Yeah.
100 million. It's no big
Yeah.
deal. We can make
I
it
mean, we've
Sure.
talked about this, Ian. Sometimes people just make baffling decisions on the music and movie stuff, and it's just
They
like if they
do.
would just ask us,
with us.
we would tell them this is a bad idea. You wouldn't have to pay me. I want this movie to be better. You don't have to pay me. I just want to help you make it better.
We'd be the Rick Rubin of. I think we do this even for SAS apps too.
That
We
you
just
could
should
do.
be taste people. Bring your
Yes.
movies, your SAS apps, whatever you have. We'll give you the yay or nay or the tweaks. There's something
I
there
think
with that.
I would be a Rick Rubin. When I retire, I'll be the Rick Rubin of something.
Yeah.
Just give opinions.
YouTube.
I just love to
YouTube.
give
Yeah.
opinions. Yeah.
How
Yeah,
great
it's
a
great.
job
It's
is
fun.
that? Such a great
Yeah.
job. Yeah, we did a couple movie podcasts way back in the day. I don't
Yeah,
remember one of the Star
we did one on
Wars.
Star
I think?
Wars.
Yeah. Maybe we'll
Man,
bring
Star
that
Wars.
back.
What a mishandled franchise that is. I feel like,
God, how?
You two
How?
could have done so much better. I agree.
Oh.
but probably
I feel
yes. Actually,
I really
I
believe
agree.
that. I
I
100%
actually agree.
believe that.
Yeah.
How did they
Oh, man.
fumble Star Wars? It's like, dude, it's nights in space. It's just, like you could literally almost do anything. How do you mess it up?
Yeah,
So
I saw someone
bad.
tweet the other day. They went to like the Star Wars place at Disney World or whatever, and it was all adults. And it was like the perfect illustration of how they've like fumbled that for the kid.
Yeah,
Like,
Mhm.
no, kids don't care about Star Wars. You know what I
No.
mean? Like
they don't
it's
care.
just all nostalgia for millennials at this point.
And it's so funny because George Lucas' whole thing is he's always like, whenever anybody critiques him about it, he's like, well, it's a movie for kids. Like that's his like, main line. But it's like, no, but the kids don't want to watch that. Like, then why'd you make it all about the Trade Federation? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, nobody, my 10-year-old doesn't care about the Trade Federation.
Oh,
like,
it's so mind-bogglingly bad. I
it's
don't
so
get it.
bad. And then I was like all hopeful. I was like, Disney, yes, like bring it into the Borg where they're just gonna like make it happen. They have all these creative people, and it's like a couple of them are okay, but it's still not what anybody thought it would be. I don't think
It's like I consider myself a Star Wars fan, and if someone held a gun to my head right now and said, "Explain the Trade Federation and Naboo and how all that went down and why that movie even happened," I'd just die. Like I'd have to die. Like they just have to shoot me. I feel like I'm a fan of this franchise.
What's even the point of Jar Jar Binks? Like, does he? What plot devices he like?
So the
I don't
kids
know.
have no chance. They got nothing.
Even just like, what's the name of Episode 9? Like, I couldn't tell you the actual title of Episode 9. I don't think I could bring it to my head. Like, how do I not know the name? It's just so
weird.
bad.
That is
Episode
amazing.
7 was good. Episode 8 and 9
Yeah.
were. Ugh.
I actually really like 7, but yeah, 8
Seven's
What
a
was
good
seven?
movie.
What was 7?
Yeah,
The first one that had like Rey and Finn and kind of the new
Yeah,
gang
that
of
was good. I
characters.
saw that.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw
It was a-
8 and 9.
It was a good, tight, focused movie.
yes.
What was the standalone
Enough
one with Felicity
callbacks.
Jones?
Rogue
That
One.
was
that
good,
one?
Rogue One.
That wasn't a bad
That
movie.
was good.
Yeah,
I like
I like
that.
That was a
Rogue
good
One.
movie.
That's the best of the offshoot sort of
Mhm.
ones, like Solos, obviously not good. All the television shows except for Andor are not good. Although Andor is super good. Andor is like the best. But yeah, I don't know. So disappointing. So disappointing. I don't know. Maybe they'll bring it around. They own it forever. We're getting Star Wars stuff forever. So maybe
Yeah, for sure.
they'll turn it around. They get the right creative people in there. Maybe when they sign us on.
Yeah, maybe when y'all
that'll
become
be it.
executive producers, it'll turn around.
No one asked us what we do there.
Yeah.
We taste make. We're the tastemakers.
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
Put that in my
Not
email
what they
signature.
do, Yeah.
The tastemaker. Yeah. Oh man. I don't know. I don't want to keep you too long, but do we have other stuff we need to touch on here? Taylor, you have any stuff on your end that you want to talk about of what's going on or anything like that?
I mean, I feel like y'all have a pretty good update as far as what we're doing over here. We've got the secret products cooking as all classic Laravel fashion.
Yeah.
Hiring update. I don't know. Anything else on y'all's mind?
How's Laracon
wanna-
coming along?
Yeah, I want to hear how excited you are to come to Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big Texas and Dallas fan. Just 4 hours away from me, so actually pretty close. I may actually come down for a finals game, Aaron.
Oh, nice.
If
Ooh.
the tickets are probably ridiculous, so I don't know. We'll see, but I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, we got the whole speaker lineup done. I've actually got a call Wednesday with our event planner. We hire a separate company to sort of put those events together. So I think it's going to be pretty sweet. The venue's good, big, huge, bright screen. We're going to have good food, good vibes, hopefully some previews of some of the stuff we've been working on. So I think it's going to be fun. I know, and I'm excited about what some of the other speakers are bringing. Like I know Caleb's bringing some pretty sweet stuff on the Livewire side. I'm hoping to show hopefully I have some inertia stuff to show on my talk so we can kind of get both sides of the coin. We'll have some of the tech journalists there, with Primeagen being not only kind of a lightning talk speaker, but also serving coffee at the event. So that'll be fun.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Hey, we're bringing the JavaScript guys. We're bringing
That's
them
right.
into the fold slowly but surely. We will absorb them, and it'll be great.
Yeah, I feel like he's actually a pretty neutral player in the space.
He is.
Like he's not really like a JavaScript guy or not a PHP guy, obviously, but just sort of a pretty neutral player.
I'm excited.
He's like what I consider a real programmer. You know, he's like a real programmer. Like he's on his YouTube, he's doing math stuff. I'm like, what the hell is he even doing? I have no idea what he's doing.
I watch some of his
math.
streams, and I'm like, dude, you're an order of magnitude beyond me. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a better programmer than me, I'm sure. But it's funny, my son, who's not into programming at all, likes to listen to Primeagen on Twitch.
Really?
Just because he finds him like funny and fast paced and like interesting. So like if we're on a long car ride, he's like, Dad, can we listen to that one funny programmer guy? And I'm like,
no
Primeagen? He's
way.
Like, yeah. So when I told him he was going to be at Laracon, he was actually pretty excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Pretty funny.
I haven't tried that angle with the kids. None of my kids are that into the programming, but maybe I need to try the Primeagen. Maybe that's the way in to their brains.
He's high energy, man. He'll keep their attention. He's so good at that.
Yeah.
I'm curious who listens. Obviously, a lot of people listen to his Twitch streams, but shouldn't they be working? Like, who are these people that are?
I don't know.
On there.
I don't know. That's one thing that I just like. I understand that it's happening, but I don't know how. I don't know how it's happening. I don't know who's watching it. It makes and thousands of people are doing it.
Working from home and getting to do it, you know? I don't know. It's like
is it just background noise for work at home programmers? Or I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Front round noise? Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know.
That's like everybody I know. It's so funny because this annoys me to no end in the real world. Like, I'm sure, like, whatever. I'm sure all our employees and whatever, like, there's stuff going on in their house and whatever, because Laravel's entirely work from home and we're entirely work from home and stuff's going on, right? But when I go into the physical world and there's like a cashier on their phone, it like just infuriates me to no end. I'm like, I used to be a retail manager, and I'd be like, I would rip that phone out of your hand so fast and like just throw it on the ground. It's like, so there's something about the physical nature of being rude to your customers directly, even though like maybe you're delaying answering customers and I don't even know because you got distracted by the Primeagen. But like kids these days, you know, they gotta be
these days. I was gonna say it if you didn't, but yeah, kids these days.
Okay, we have to do one more thing. Taylor, do you let anybody real-time track you on your iPhone GPS?
Great question. It's a great question.
No. I'm still tracking
Abigail,
Sam. I'm still tracking
Abigail
Sam Selikoff.
Yeah, you're tracking him. You like to track people, but you don't want to be tracked. That makes total sense. I'm down with that. I don't mind tracking other people, but I don't want to be tracked. All right.
Yeah,
Taylor's on team no track.
I don't have any opposition to like a spouse like knowing where you are for like safety or whatever. I actually just don't go anywhere usually, so it's not really like a problem.
Know where you are.
Moot point, yeah.
Yeah, sort of a moot point. But yeah, I'm still tracking old Sam from our Cabana Conf. I was like, Sam was like, I just share it with everyone. Everyone knows where I am, and I told him about that. I was like, yeah, I know. But yeah, what are y'all's teams? Are y'all team track, team no track?
Oh, track all the way. Jennifer always knows where I am. I know where she is.
It's convenient.
I'm team
so
no track.
Convenient. Ian is team no man.
Yeah. I don't want anybody. Yeah. I don't want the missile coming to get me because somebody revealed my location or the drone strike or anything like that.
You're not an executive producer. You're not that important.
I think I can actually see Abigail's location. So I probably should share mine, honestly. To be fair, but like it is useful.
New take the one-way sharing.
Yeah.
So it is useful sometimes when like, okay, I know she's coming home and I want to like knock out the dishes. I need to do something, you know, like before she
Yes.
gets home.
I've put something off till the last minute. How much time do I have left? Yeah.
Yeah, like I need to get the dishwasher emptied. I need to do something, you know, and that's actually the most convenient feature of that, I would say.
That's what I'm saying.
No, this was basically Aaron's take two of the like arrival time estimation and things of that nature. But I don't know, I'm not converted yet, but maybe with a wife possibly. But
I got one more question. Ian had his question. I got one more question. How much do you think, Taylor? How much do you think the Lambo has memed Laravel and PHP into the wider ecosystem?
I mean, I think it's not nothing. Like it's definitely raised awareness.
Definitely.
It's definitely raised awareness and kind of become a joke or a meme in the wider developer. I mean, it was even at freaking Vercel's conference. They had a PHP Lambo up on the stage, you know, on the screen, which is a pretty big thing. So yeah, I don't regret that purchase at all from that perspective. No.
It's hopefully at this point it's a write-off. Hopefully,
it should be. It should be. I've never been one to you know, take those kind of chances on the write-offs, but it should be at this point.
It's kind of interesting how much more mileage you've gotten out of that too than like, I mean, DHH, right? Like he was literally racing cars and he has tons of cars way before you had a Lambo. He had all these expensive cars, right? And like
one of his cars, it cost 20 times what a Lambo costs. Like one of those that Aston Martin. That's like a $4 million car, you know.
Right. A little more than a slightly used Lambo, yeah. For sure.
I don't think people realize how strong DHH's car flex game is. Me and DHH are way different. We're not in the same ballpark on the car.
People have no idea how much DHH makes. They're like, oh, he's probably doing all right. I'm like, he's got hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Like
the guy's got over $10 million just in cars. Dude's got a car elevator. You know what I mean? Right. Like it's not. We're not. I'm T-ball. He's Yankees. You know, like as far as the car goes.
I've got a house in Malibu that overlooks the ocean. Okay, like it's not like it's like a house made of concrete and glass and shit. It's not just some like little cabin he got. It's probably a $50 million house. Like, come on.
The empty land that house sits on is worth more than anybody bashing him on Twitter even has.
It's worth more than Arkansas, all of them, probably.
All of them together.
Yeah.
Every single one of them together doesn't have.
People don't realize that Pagani Zonda, or the Zonda the DHH has, that's a one-off. It's called the Zonda HH. It's a one-off car. And that just off the shelf, that thing's got to be like $3-4 million, right? You know? So
yeah, he's on a whole nother
It's a Zonda HH for Hannemeyer Hansen.
Yes, they made it for him.
That's a one-off. You know, not even a one-off Pagani is obviously millions of dollars, but the Zonda HH one-off, custom color, custom made for him. Like, come on, he's a different level.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
T-ball versus the Yankees for
and he's got the Koenigsegg one-off HH too.
Oh, he's like
the
really?
Agera
I mean, the
HH,
Koenigsegg's are like $8 million or something like that. So yeah, I mean,
he got the one-off
$50 million in cars. Okay, so like people are like, man, they're going down. Basecamp doesn't sell that much as it used to. All the competition. I'm like, come on, what the hell you guys are talking about? Like, they're printing the money printing factory. That was kind of funny because when Aaron interviewed him, he's like, you know, what if we go out of business one day? I don't know. I do enjoy that mindset of him having that mindset of like, if I have to build with my two hands, I need to. Like, that's my mindset too. I love that.
And my $250 million. What could we build?
$800 million and my two hands. We can do it. But
I still think about that. It's funny. I still think about that with Laravel, like what I said about not letting other people merge PRs into Laravel, because I think like, if all of this dies, like I need a framework to build stuff with. So like, I got to keep Laravel good, you know.
Yeah, I got to keep it pure and clean. So one last other thing is, you still are doing all that? Like, are you still the like open source? That's still your thing fully is?
Yeah. So we kind of have a little open source team at Laravel. So that consists right now of Joe Tannenbaum, who is new, and he's working on that VS Code stuff right now, and then Dries, who's been long time sort of open source triage, he does all of the issue management. So I never look at GitHub issues. Like I never click the issues tab on GitHub. In years, I haven't clicked that button.
You got to tell Adam to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't look at those issues.
Yeah. And then Mior, who works a lot on Laravel Nova, but also does a lot of open source help for us. And then me, I still, every morning, first thing I do when I sit down at the office every day is click a bookmark that says pull request, and it shows me all the pull requests across the whole Laravel org, all the open source repos combined into one screen.
Yeah.
And usually that sits at around 6 to 10 open pull requests by the end of every day. And that's what I do. I'm the only one that merges those pull requests still.
Wow.
And that goes
Do you
for
love
like
that?
the framework. Yeah, I like doing that. It's fun. Most of them are pretty fast, because they're just like a simple one-line change or a typo. You do occasionally get the ones where it's like 30 files changed, and that takes like a few days of like looking through it a little bit at a time. But yeah, I still really like it, and it's just like I feel like that I'm the tastemaker for that stuff, like still, and try to keep it cohesive and like it feels like it all was written by the same person and all of that. So yeah, that's what I do first thing every day.
I saw one recently that was like improve application service provider loading when you have like 300 service providers by using a hash map. And it was pretty in depth. And so what's your process? You like look at it and then switch it to draft if it's not ready? Like what's your flow there?
Yeah, so like if it needs any tweaks, I'll leave a comment and then mark it as draft because I filter out drafts on that like bookmark that I was talking about. So it filters out drafts. It filters out a few other repos that I don't really manage. And then I'll just tell them mark it ready for review when you want me to take a look again.
Gotcha.
I feel like our workflow is actually pretty hardcore. Like if I close a pull request, I never go back to the pull request. They could leave a bunch of comments. I would never see them unless like Dries surfaces it to me because sometimes he will. But usually you just would have to reopen like a fresh pull request to kind of get me to look at it again. And I try to action things pretty quickly because otherwise you'll just end up with hundreds of pull requests because like if I didn't do pull request for a week, we would have over 100 because we get like 20 a day or something like that. So it would pile up really quickly.
That's the thing that blew my mind at the Laracon Nashville. Like I would come backstage looking for a speaker and you would be sitting on the couch doing pull requests. And I'm like, in the middle of Laracon? It's just crazy that you're always on it.
Yeah. I remember one time, this was a few years back, I was in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days and I came out of the hospital. I didn't do pull requests there. I came out of the hospital. I had 135 pull requests after like I'd only been gone for like 4 days.
Wow.
But yeah, pretty crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why I'm always on top of it.
Yeah, at some point you might need some help there eventually, but you're still holding it down for now.
Yeah, still holding on.
But that is a huge thing you do see come up every once in a while. You see just like a tweet fly across or whatever that people can't believe, like there's no issues open in Laravel, or they're like, do they just auto close them or whatever? It's like, no, somebody's like reviewing and on top of shit there.
Yeah, I think for the size of like the number of pull requests and number of contributors, Laravel's got to be pretty unique in like the low issue pull request count. Because projects of this size, very common to have like 400 open pull requests.
Just building up forever.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Been trying to get you on for a bit, so this is awesome. I think we broke some news. I think it was great.
Yeah, it's fun times.
Yeah. All right, man.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for everybody for listening. Can go to check out all the old episodes on mostlytechnical.com. Hit us up on Twitter at mostlytechpod, and you can also email in at mostlytechnicalpodcast@gmail.com, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
See ya.